In a remote corner of Epsilon Theta IV, a frontier world far from Earth, Jonas Green lived a quiet life as one of the colony's few independent farmers. His farm was modest by Earth standards, but with the thick-skinned crops and bioengineered grain he designed to withstand the planet's hostile weather, he managed to scrape by. Life was simple, even lonely, but Jonas liked it that way. Until one stormy evening, everything changed. He was out securing the barn doors when he heard the cries, high-pitched and frantic, carrying through the heavy rain. Curiosity got the better of him, and he ventured out, flashlight in hand, tracing the sound through the whipping wind. It took a while, but eventually he found it, a tiny, trembling creature huddled beneath the leaves of an enormous, dripping fern. It was about the size of a large cat, with silvery skin that shimmered like liquid mercury and enormous eyes, yellow and wide with fear. Its small, feathered tendrils shivered as it met his gaze, and Jonas felt a pang of sympathy. He'd seen creatures like this around the colony before, borkins they were called. They were the planet's apex predators, fearsome beasts that grew up to 10 feet tall, with thick, plated scales and powerful jaws. But this one was just a baby. Jonas hesitated, considering the risks, but the sight of the helpless creature touched something in him. He'd never had children, and the borkin pup seemed so alone, so vulnerable. "All right, little one," he murmured, reaching out a cautious hand. "Let's get you someplace warm." The pup, to his surprise, seemed to understand. It crept toward him, leaning into his hand with a whimper as he scooped it up and cradled it against his chest. Back in the warmth of his modest farmhouse, Jonas made a bed for it in an old crate, and as the storm raged outside, he sat with the tiny creature, his heart stirring with a strange, paternal affection. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Jonas named the borkin Kilo and raised him as his own, feeding him a diet of fortified protein bars and tender cuts of meat. Kilo followed him everywhere, his shimmering skin blending into the golden fields, his tendrils twitching in delight as he nuzzled up against Jonas. Kilo learned quickly, surprising Jonas with his intelligence. He seemed to understand commands, mimicking Jonas's movements and even helping out with the farm chores in his own clumsy way. Kilo loved curling up by Jonas's bed at night, and Jonas couldn't deny the joy he felt waking up to find Kilo there, loyal and protective. But as Kilo grew, so did Jonas's concerns. Borkins were known to be fiercely territorial and aggressive hunters. He'd raised Kilo from infancy, but he couldn't ignore the reality of the creature's nature. Even though Kilo had never shown any aggression, his size was becoming hard to ignore. Jonas built a larger pen for him outside and tried to limit their time together, hoping to ease the inevitable transition when Kilo would no longer fit in his farmhouse. The day Kilo reached full maturity, Jonas awoke to the sound of snarling outside. Rushing out, he found Kilo towering at nearly 10 feet, his scales thick and metallic, his once soft tendrils bristling as he faced down a pack of wild derns, scavenger creatures that had been raiding Jonas's crops. With a terrifying roar, Kilo lunged at them, scattering them into the nearby forest. Jonas watched, a mix of pride and fear twisting in his chest. Kilo had saved his farm, his home, but the fierceness in Kilo's eyes, the raw, predatory intensity, reminded Jonas that his friend was now a fully grown borkin, a dangerous creature that could turn on him at any moment. Still, Kilo didn't leave. He stayed close to Jonas, protective and ever watchful. Jonas spoke to him softly, feeling as though Kilo understood, and in those quiet moments, he wondered if perhaps he'd managed to reach the creature's heart. But fate tested their bond soon enough. One day, Jonas traveled to the colony settlement for supplies, leaving Kilo in the pen. A passing guard saw the massive borkin and mistook it for a rogue beast that had wandered onto the farm. Without a second thought, the guard fired his weapon, wounding Kilo in his shoulder. Jonas returned to find Kilo injured, snarling and feral with pain, his glowing yellow eyes filled with rage. For a moment, Jonas feared for his life as Kilo struggled against the pain, snapping at the air. But then, recognizing his human friend, Kilo's wild eyes softened. Jonas knelt beside him, unafraid. "It's all right, Kilo. I'm here." He cleaned Kilo's wound, whispering soothing words, and by some miracle, Kilo allowed him to help. The bond they'd forged over the years had not broken. Jonas knew then that, against all odds, Kilo had chosen loyalty over his instincts. This bond was as strong as blood, as resilient as the planet's harsh seasons. As the years went on, Kilo became both guardian and friend to Jonas, watching over the farm with a quiet ferocity. Other colonists spread rumors of the strange farmer and his loyal beast, but to Jonas, Kilo was simply family. And when the day came that Jonas finally passed, old and content, it was said that Kilo stood vigil by his grave, silent and unmoving, as if waiting for his friend to return. In the end, Jonas had raised a beast. But in the process, he'd found a friend, a protector, and against all odds, a son. Hope you enjoyed it.